All right, it's
Yeah,
live.
we're live.
Well, live on YouTube.
Yeah. All right, Lohit. Over
Thank
to
you.
you.
Okay, so hello and welcome everyone who's viewing from YouTube Live. I am Rahul Rangan and I'm the Chief of Education and Research of MERSA. And we welcome you to day 2 of the workshop, MERSA Methodology. And today we're going to be talking about protocol reviewal. But before we start into that, I would really like all of our delegates today to give a huge hello from our side. So if y'all can unmute yourselves.
Hello
Hello.
everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
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 Perfect. Thank you so much for that very, very warm welcome to everyone. If you'll have any doubts, y'all can always text it on the YouTube live chat box, and we will make sure that by the end of the session, we answer your doubts. Today, we will be starting with our Associate Chief of Research, who's going to be taking protocol preparation. And I will hand it over to Lohit Vaishnav to conduct the first session.
Thanks a lot, Rahul. Am I audible? Am I audible to all of you?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yeah.
That's great. So, guys, I am Lohit Vaishnav. I am the Associate Chief of Research at MERSA, and today I will be teaching you about how to prepare a research protocol. Guys, I really hope that from yesterday's session you have learned a lot, and now you are much aware about what is the types of research and what are the study designs and all. So we are going to make a research protocol today. So, okay, as I have seen and experienced in last 2 to 3 years, in Indian medical graduates, they are very much interesting and very much enthusiastic about the how to do a research, and they are much interesting in doing a research. But when things come to making a protocol, they lag behind and they feel that no, yeah, this is something difficult for them. So I would like to give you one poll and what are the different reasons why the Indian medical graduates lag behind in preparation of protocol. So Rahul, can you please make a poll?
I hope it's visible to everyone.
The question is, what is the reason for students to lag behind in research activities or making protocols? Option 1 is lack of resources, option B is lack of proper guidance, and C is not aware about the protocol making, and option D is both B and C.
Maybe we could end the poll. We already have 37 people have already voted.
Yes, we can open the poll. Guys, please answer the poll as per as possible. So, as I can see in the poll, 92% of the participants said that the reason for their lagging is lack of proper guidance and not aware about the protocol. So, guys, that's this is the reason for conducting this session. So, many students or many Indian graduates said that they are not aware of how to make a protocol and they are lack of guidance regarding this. So, we are going to conduct this session. So guys, before moving ahead to the protocol preparation, I would just like you to remember three simple things in your mind. That three simple things you should keep in your mind before moving to the protocol preparation. One is significance, innovation, and approach. Guys, the topic you are choosing it should be a significant to the medical field. I think this is clear to all of you. The next thing is innovation. Guys, my next question is to you is that why you are approaching or why you are attending this workshop, because all of you feel that you will get to learn about something innovation or something new. That's why you are attending this session. So in the protocol, the same applies to the reviewer. Reviewer really look for the any innovation in your research protocol. Hence, your protocol or your topic should be innovative. And third thing you should learn or you should keep in your mind is approach. Right? I would like to give you example, simple example of two students. One student is preparing. Both of students are preparing for exam. One student studying day and night for the exams, and another student is an average student and they are he is also preparing for exam. But at the end of the exam, the result said that both of them will get good marks, and second student will get more marks than the first, because just the difference is their approach how to write an answer. Because second student write answer in very systematic manner, they use bullet points and all. So the same thing implies here in research protocol. How much you write, it doesn't matter. How specific and what is your content, this really matters in the research protocol. So before moving, I would just like you to keep in mind that is your topic should be significance. You should make some innovation in that, and your approach should be good. So, guys, this is the agenda for today's session. We are going to learn about the basic components of research protocol, the ICMR, WHO, and NIH guidelines for making research protocol. Then we will learn about the standard referencing style and the difference between case record form, patient information sheet, and study questionnaire. And also, we will teach you about the differences between the ICMR guidelines, WHO guidelines, and NIH guidelines. I think you all are aware about them. ICMR is Indian Council of Medical Research, WHO is World Health Organization, and NIH is National Institute of Health. So these are the three standard guidelines for making research protocol. So the basic components of research protocol, according to the ICMR, the basic component of research protocol is like the reference ID, title, introduction, objectives, methodology, implication, and references. Guys, many of the students have already applied for the ICMR and they were knowing about all these things. But I would just like to once go through the word limit. The reference ID, it is already generated by ICMR. The title, it should be just 25 words. Introduction 300 words, objective 100 words, methodology 800, implication 100 words, and references in 300 words. But the references should be strictly in Banker's style only for ICMR. And in WHO and in NIH, you can use APA format also. So, guys, what is the most important parts of the protocol? According to me, there are just two important parts of the protocol. Guys, every medical student think like our protocol should get approved. Her aim or her or his aim is the protocol should get approved. But I wish you should stop thinking like our protocol should get approved. Just think like a guide or just think like a reviewer. Reviewer think like why he will accept that paper and how to reject that paper. Just two questions. And what reviewer think? Reviewer just check for your title. Another thing, he check for your aims and objectives. This should be very much specific. And third most important thing, he will check for your approach and how you are going to approach your objectives and how you are going to present achieve your objectives. So your objectives and aims should be very much specific, and it should not be more than means the portion or the sequence of means research protocol up to the aims and objectives should not be more than one page, because more than one page of aims and objective, it will be irritating to the reviewer because he has to review many protocols. And next thing is your research strategy, it means your methodology. He will next look for the research strategy means methodology. So we are going to discuss this in very details. So guys, you should not forget about the formats and layout. You should follow the Times New Roman font with the font size of 12 and the line spacing of 1.5. The another figure shows that how to write a protocol means what are the sequences. First we will write reference ID, then title, then introduction, then like we will come right to the aims and objectives. So these are the standard guidelines. First, content is reference ID. As shown in this figure, you need to mention the reference ID in the right corner of first page. Then you should write title. And reference ID is just for the identification purpose and to avoid the unbiased review. And no identifying information of student or guide should be written on the protocol. So next thing is title. As per the discussion in yesterday's session, your title should be very much short, accurate, and concise. And most important thing about your title is your title should make the central objectives and variables of the study very much clear. So guys, what are the central objectives of study? Central objectives means what you are going to achieve or what you are going to do in the particular study. This is your central objectives, means what you are going to achieve. And next most important thing is what are your variables of the study. You should make it very clear. So guys, I would like to give you some examples of the studies. Uh, the examples I am giving is already accepted and approved by the ICMR. So the examples are: first example is assessment of cognitive performance during pregnancy with minicog and audiovisual reaction time across 6 month study. Means the first portion is assessment of cognitive performance. Guys, this makes you are going to assess the cognitive performance for whom during the pregnancy with, means first portion clears that your central objectives what you are going to do assessment of cognitive performance during pregnancy, and in the next portion with minicog and audiovisual reaction time, it means this makes the variables of your study very clear, and at the end you have written a cross sectional study. It means this is the one of the example of ideal title that has been already accepted by the ICMR. Then we will move to the third example, a retrospective observational study of poisoning cases admitted in tertiary care teaching institute in the tribal region of central India. Guys, you can mention the site of study like this, any area or any region, or you can mention the type of study, but it is not mandatory to always include the site and the design, because in the retrospective observational study of poisoning cases, a retrospective observational study, this makes a type of study very much clear. Then the study of poisoning cases admitted in tertiary care teaching institute, this makes the central objective very much clear, and in a tribal region of central India, it makes the study site. But in this study, we have mentioned about the site because in poisoning cases, the site of particular cases are very much important. But in above case, means in first example, assessment of cognitive performance, we have not mentioned about the site because we have just mentioned we are doing the assessment of cognition in pregnancy because there is not much significance of site. So this is depending on your study. Then second example is attitude of parents and teachers towards adolescent reproductive and sexual health education, a mixed method study. In this study, what you are going to do, like the central objective is to assess the attitude of parents and teachers toward adolescent reproductive sexual health. Means this is the central objectives and variables are very much clear, and the study design is like a mixed method study. So these are the ideal examples of the study title. I think this is very much clear to all of you how to write a title of a research project. So we will move ahead to the introduction. So guys, what should be the ideal content of introduction? I think if we are doing any research study, then you should mention about the purpose, means why you are going to do particular research study and what is the importance or significance of particular study with the medical field. The next thing, you should provide a rationale or reasoning to do a particular research study, and you should describe about various study designs or various designs and like various study tools, means why you are using that particular study tool in your study, and what are the different study tools for the same study. And then I will explain you with the example also. Then you should mention about the situation and the existing knowledge, and with the gap of the existing knowledge and current knowledge about the same. And you should always write about the references. Guys, these things are not much clear according to me. So please think for an example. If you are doing a research study, you are planning for a research study of prevalence of anemia in particular region. So we will think from first thing. First thing is title. So how you will write title? The title should be like the cross sectional, or if we are looking for records, then this will be retrospective study. So the title is like the retrospective observational study of prevalence of anemia in, means if you are doing study in pregnant women, means the study title is like the retrospective observational study of prevalence of anemia amongst the pregnant women in if we will mention the type of means site of study like in the Maharashtra or the state of India, like that. The title should be a retrospective observational study of prevalence of anemia in pregnant women in the Maharashtra, a cross-sectional study, like that. This should be the ideal title. Then what should be the content? Means if we are going to check for the prevalence of anemia, then what things we need to mention? First thing, purpose. Why you are going to do this study? And it means we are going to make a short background for to start this study. So purpose is you can mention the what is anemia, then what are the side effects or what are the comorbidities associated with anemia. Then next thing, rational or reasoning. then why you are going to see this study, because you can mention in because in anemia, due to anemia in pregnancy, what is the mortality rate in particular thing, means what are the mortality rate globally and what is the mortality rate in India. So this will explain the rationale and the uh, means the statistics mainly. Then next thing is design, means design and study tools. What are the different tools we have for the diagnosis of anemia? Like we can just diagnose with the hemoglobin of CBC. We can diagnose of PS, but PS is obviously more specific. So we can discuss like there are following tools like CBC, PS, and all. We can discuss on electrophoresis, वगैरह. But the most specific and easily feasible is PS or CBC. So we can mention like that. And next thing is you should mention the what is the existing knowledge and what is the present knowledge and what we are going to achieve. Means I would like to tell you one simple trick. Always end the introduction with the present knowledge or the existing knowledge on the present topic is not so conclusive. Hence, we are going to do a research study with the aims and objectives of, means we are going to make a background and directly we are entering into the aims and objectives. So this will make a sequence of your research protocol. So the ideal content of research protocol should be, means in introduction you should write the purpose, the importance, the rationale behind the study design, the situations you are doing, and the means situations means the existing knowledge and the statistics. And you should always write the references for anything, because this is the main difference between the research writing and any other writing. Because in this writing you need to mention about the references. Anything you are writing, you need to have the reference for the same. So next, these are the two simple examples. These are the protocols approved by the ICMR. I'm just giving an example of first study, the assessment of cognition during pregnancy with minicog and audiovisual reaction time. So, guys, what should be the ideal content of research introduction? First, in first paragraph, we have mentioned about the word cognition came from and what is the definition of cognition and what does it mean. In the second paragraph, because the title is assessment of cognition during pregnancy with minicog and audiovisual reaction time. So in first paragraph we have mentioned what is the cognition. In second paragraph we have mentioned that means how pregnancy is related with cognition, and how the pregnancy affect the cognition of the woman, or the what cognition and pregnancy will affect to the outcome of maternal and child health. So this has been mentioned in second. Then the outcome and the effect of cognition and pregnancy is mentioned in third paragraph. Then in fourth paragraph, we have mentioned about what are the different tools we have for assessment of cognition, and what is the most specific tool and what is most feasible tool for assessment of particular thing. And at the end, we have mentioned that the existing literature is not so conclusive. Hence, we are doing this study. Means you need to mention your importance. Means your importance of your introduction, means why you are going to do this particular research study and why you are writing that protocol. In the next study, the title is Attitude of Parents and Teachers Toward Adolescent Reproductive and Sexual Health Education, a mixed method study. In this topic is also innovative. I have taken this example because this topic is innovative. And in the first paragraph it has been mentioned like what is sex education and what are the barriers and why this is important. This is just a simple short but sweet rationale for the study. So one thing I would also like to tell you, this doesn't matter how much you write, it doesn't matter how much precise and how much informative and how much important your content is really matter. It is not like if ICMR is giving 300 word count limit for introduction, then you should write in 300. This is not a case. You can write it in simple 100 words also, but you need to be very clear and very precise with your writing, and you need to give a references to means each and everything you can, because otherwise your study will get came into the plagiarism and it will be rejected. So now moving ahead with the aims and objectives. So guys, before moving ahead to the aims and objectives, I have some question for you. So what is the aim and what is objective? So I would like you to solve one poll. So Rahul, can you please put a poll?
Just putting it, Lohit, 1 second. I hope it's visible to everyone.
Yes. So the question is, according to you, what is the aims and objectives? And your options are, they are synonyms, they are antonyms, and they will not related to each other, and they are related to each other. Guys, please choose your answer. Please choose your answer as early as possible.
This Javeria is texting that she can't see the poll. For some reason, I think it's not visible to her. Lohit, could you just repeat the question
Yes.
slowly?
So my question is, according to you, what is the aims and objectives? My first option is they are synonyms. Second option is they are antonyms. Third is they are not at all related to each other. And the last option is they are related to each other. So guys, please submit the poll as early as possible so we can move ahead, because I have to cover lots of things and in limited time. So the answer is 8% student. Okay, so 8% students feel like they are synonyms, and 92% students feel like they are related to each other, but they are not antonyms, or they are nothing like they are not related. So according to the majority, the aims and objectives are related to each other. So this is absolutely correct answer. Guys, I think I would just like to make clear then what is the difference of aims and objectives. So the difference is like aims, just look at the figure I have mentioned in my slide. The red circle is your aim, means what you are going to do is your aim, but objective is the middle circle, or in the circle the arrow is passing, because aim is broad criteria and the objective is like what means why and how, means in that you need to describe that how you are gonna achieve that final aim. Means I would just repeat, aim described as what you expect to achieve at the end of a research project or research title. So the big circle, big red circle is your aim, and your objective is, it describes that how you are going to achieve the final aim. I think this is clear to all of you. Aim is the broad criteria and objective is short. It means the big circle is your aim, that what you are going to do, and how you are going to do is your objectives. So in the research protocol writing, you should mention like, you should always start your aims with the words like identify, define, quantify, or estimate, and you should make this in the bullet points. Then in objectives, you should start your objectives like specify, like identify, then compare and confirm, like this. So this is the primary difference between the aims and objectives. Aims, I will again repeat, aims describe that what you are expected to achieve at the end of your project, and objective is how you are gonna achieve the particular thing. So just remember an example: the big circle is your aim, and the small circle is your objectives. So this is the checkpoint till aims and objectives. I think I have covered various points about the aims and objectives introduction. So you should keep in your mind that your aims and objectives introduction will not exceed to the one page. Your aims, it should be very much focused and concentrate on what you are going to look in the project. Then introduction should make clear your picture, means what you are going to do and what is the background of the study and what is the importance of your research study. Your research study and your introduction should be innovative, and you should clearly mention about what is the rationale of your study, and your aims and objectives should be very much logical, means what you are writing in introduction, it will make the background of your aims and objectives. As I earlier mentioned, we will write like we will write introduction, and in the end we will just write like existing literature is not so conclusive. Hence, we are doing a particular study with the MCET objective of this. And don't forget to add bullets or bold points or the headers in the MCET objectives. So, guys, this is the most important thing of this session. That is the methodology. I think I have covered all the things. What should be the content of reference ID? What should be the content of title? And what should be the content of your introduction? And how to write the aims and objectives. So here we will come ahead to the most important thing, that is methodology. Methodology means why. I have just given the example of approach. Means how you are going to approach your objectives and why. Mean how you are going to reach to your final points. Means why you are doing this. So first thing you should mention is that study design. So as per the yesterday's session, your study designs like cross-sectional study, retrospective study, case control study, cohort study. If you are looking, you are just observing that, then this will the observational study. If you are doing any intervention, then this will be your interventional study. And in study design, you can mention like a cross-sectional study if you are just observing a cross-sectional of the study. Then if you are using two groups, that is one group is cases and one is control, then this will be your case control study. I think these things already have covered in the yesterday's session. Then if you have any group like any group of similar peoples, then this will be your cohorts, and this will be known as the cohort study. So these are the various types and study designs you should mention in your methodology. Then next thing you should mention is study population. Means what is the study population you are doing a research study on. Means study population is very much important because as I have taken the examples of study of prevalence of anemia. So because prevalence of anemia study is very vague, we can take any man, any female, or any normal person, or any person with other comorbidities. So we should make our study very much precise, and for avoiding any bias, we should make our study population and study sites very clear. So means it should be very specific. In study population, if we are taking an example of prevalence of anemia, you are going to make sure that you are going to do this study in the pregnant women only. So your study population is only pregnant women. So in the study population, you also need to mention the selection criteria. So what is your selection criteria and what are your exclusion criteria? Means in selection criteria, you need to mention about what is the inclusion criteria and what are the exclusion criteria. If you are doing a study of prevalence of anemia, then other factors, because there are many factors which hampers the anemia. So that factors should not hamper your study findings. So in scientific words, we can say like to avoid the confounding factors. So we need to make our inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria very much clear. In inclusion criteria, we can say like all the pregnant women came to the OPD of obstetrics and gynecology. They are included in the study. And in exclusion criteria, we can say that the pregnant women with other comorbidities or having another systemic illnesses or all, they are excluded from the study. So that our aims to mention that very clear is that you should our confounding factors should not hamper the finding of our study. Another example, if you are doing a study of effect of lockdown due to COVID-19 on the medical students, so you should make your study population very clear, that is your medical students. And in selection criteria, you can mention like you cannot do a study with very vague study population. Means you cannot say like students of India. The students of India will make all the students in India, and then the thing will like what is your prevalence and all. So this thing will hamper your finding. So you should be precise with your study population. Means you can do like a study of the effect of COVID-19 lockdown on the mental health of medical students or the pre-medical students. If you are doing a mental health of medical student, then your study population is mental health of means your study population is medical students. And what is the selection criteria? If you are doing only final year student, then you should make a selection criteria of only final year students were included in the study. And in exclusion criteria, you can say like the students of other pathies or the student of means other field were excluded. Or if you are doing only final year, then in exclusion you can write like students of first year or second year were excluded from the study, like that. And or you can also mention in exclusion criteria, like the student with other mental health issues were excluded from the study. So this will make your study more precise and more constructive. Then you should mention about the study duration. Means, to make your study very much significant, you should write about the study duration in which you are going to do this particular study, because this makes your study more significant. If you are doing a research study under the ICMR STS program, then you should write, like ICMR says, you need to do a research study within a 2 months of span. So your study duration will be 2 months. If you are doing a retrospective study, you can take a study duration, like if you are looking for the records of last 10 years, then you can take like the study duration will be of 10 years from this to this, but we are analyzing in this month. So we can do like that. This is the study duration, means in the time duration you are looking for the records of. Then I think we have covered study design, study types, study population, sample size. Yes, sample size is also important. Actually, the sample size calculation is a very big topic, and actually we are going to conduct a separate seminar on biostat and sample size collection. But as this topic comes into the methodology and the protocol preparation, I would just like to concentrate on the sample size of cross-sectional studies, because this is the most common type of study design. In cross-sectional studies, we mainly use the formula of 4PQ by D square. It means, uh, I think all of you are aware of that formula, or we can take it on simple on next seminar also. So 4PQ by L square or D square is like 4 multiplied by P, means P is the prevalence of particular thing. Like if we are doing a study of prevalence of anemia, then what should be our ideal sample size? We want to know that what should be our ideal sample size. So we will use a formula 4PQ by D square. If our prevalence is 10%, so 4 multiplied by 10, and Q is P, 100, 100 minus P equal to Q. So if the prevalence is 10, then the if prevalence is 10, then the Q is our 90. So 4 into 10 into 90. And in D square, means D is the error we can accept. So if we are doing a simple calculation like 4PQ by D square, then 4 into prevalence is 10 and Q is 90, and D is like we are taking only 2 error, then 2 square is 4. So 4 is cancelled, then 900 is your ideal sample size. So we can calculate sample size like this, but we will take it in details in our next webinars in of biostats. So study design is clear, study type is already clear to you, study population, sample size, study duration, selection criteria. And if you are going to make any intervention, then you should mention about the intervention. It may be of any psychological intervention, it may be of any medicinal intervention, or it may be another whatever the therapy or anything. Then you should mention about the ethics and consent. So ethics means you should mention like the ethical approval for the study was taken by the institutional ethics committee of the study site, and you should mention about the registration number of ethical committee. Then in consent, you should write like the written informed consent was taken from all the participants for their voluntarily participation, because consent is really important for the voluntarily participation in particular study. If anyone is not willing to give a consent, we cannot take or we cannot ask or we cannot force him or her to participate in our study. And consent should be in our vernacular language. It means you can just write we have a standard protocols and standard pro forma of consent also. So this will be taken in our next webinars of ethics and consent and all. But it should be 2 to 3 points I would like to tell you: ethics and consent. So consent should be in vernacular language, and the complete procedure should be explained to the participants. And you should take a written informed consent, no verbal consent. The next thing is data collection procedure. In the methodology, you should mention about what is your data collection procedure. So we are taking simple examples, same examples. If we are taking a effect of lockdown on mental health of medical students, so for the mental health of medical students, we are gonna make a Google form based questionnaire. So we should mention like we are the online survey of using Google form was made, and it has been circulated in the classroom of the classroom groups or WhatsApp groups of the study duration, means study population, means like we are taking final year students, then it will be circulated in the all the final year groups of all medical colleges in particular region. Means if we are doing our study in Maharashtra, then in Maharashtra, like that. And if you are doing a study like assessment of cognitive performance during pregnancy with mini-cog and audiovisual reaction time, so this is the study to do under the OPD or any means in the any institution. So we should mention like the data collection procedure is like uh, we have taken the participant, and after that the participant were subjected to particular this test, and we have also recorded the data, and after that we have taken the we have recorded the data. And in different studies, like if our studies like questionnaire based study, then we can use a standard questionnaire. For the mental health, we can use a DSS 21 or GAD 7, or for assessment, if your study is like KP study, in knowledge attitude and practices study, knowledge can be assessed from the pre means self-made questions also. But for assessment of attitude, we need to use about the scales, that is standard Likert scale and all. And in next thing, I have mentioned about the cross-sectional study. I have mentioned about the KAP study, and in cross-sectional also we can use the case record form, and you can make about the patient information sheet. This will be also told to you in the next sessions of ethics and consent. So in last, the plan of analysis and statistical proof. So this is also similar topic we will be teaching you in the statistics. But here I would just like to tell you, if your study is like cross-sectional study. So in cross-sectional study, if your group is paired, means if you are doing a means just remember like that, if you are going to compare or if you are looking for the significance in the average of mean and standard deviation, then you should use a test like t test. And if you are taking any contingency tables or a case control study, like you can use the odds ratio or Fisher exact test. So this will be told to you, this will be again told to you in the biostat webinar, but this is just related to our methodology. So I'm just telling you, and you can just mention like the data was collected using the case record form or the standard questionnaire. The questionnaire should be pre-validated, and preform if it is preformed, then it is pre-validated using the pilot study. The questionnaire is the data was means we can mention like the data was pulled from the questionnaire, and it will be pulled in the Excel sheet or any software, and it will be analyzed using any test of significance, means student unpaid t-test or Fisher's exact test. So this should be the ideal content of your methodology. So next, we need to mention about the implications. Means what implication and objectives are little important. Means complementary. If you are doing particular objectives, means what are your objectives? This should be come in the implication. Means in implication, you write. You need to describe about what is expected to be achieved or gained from your research study, and what advancement your study will going to make in our means medical field. So these are the content of your implications. So I think this is clear to all of you. So I will just repeating the content. So the ideal content of research protocol is like reference ID, title, introduction, objectives, methodology, implication, and references. Then these are the two important points of your research protocol. Your aim should be very much precise and specific, and your research strategy is like you need to mention you can mention in in flowchart manner, or you can use simple table, or you can use figures in the methodology also. Then format is Times New Roman, font size of 12, and line spacing of 1.5. Then the ideal content is reference ID. Then title, I have told that the title should be short, accurate, and concise, and it should make the central objective, means what you are going to uh, do in the study. It will be very much clear, and the variables of the studies will be clear. So these are the some examples of title. Then introduction. In introduction, you should clearly mention about the purpose of your study, significance of your study, reasoning, different study designs, and what you are going to do. Then the conclusive evidences also, means you need to tell them that we are doing this study because existing literature were not much clear or not much conclusive, and you also need to mention about the references. So your aims and objectives you mainly need to mention in bullet points. Then this is the difference, and this is the checkpoint, and these are the contents of methodology. You should mention about study design, type of study, study population, sample size, study duration, selection criteria, any intervention, ethics and consent, data collection procedure, and plan of analysis or statistical tool. So these are the implication.
Lohit, we
And
have a question from
yes,
Madhulika.
yes,
Go ahead, Madhulika.
Hi. I
Madhu.
wanted to ask a question from your example from that sexual health,
Yes,
that research article. Can you show
yes,
me that?
yes,
So,
yes,
yes. So in the objective, I see that you have written this separately, like to study the attitude of parents towards social health, and to study the attitude of teachers. So why can't we just write it as to study the attitude of parents and teachers rather than separating it?
yes. You can just write like that also. These are just the means way of presentation. The this protocol
I
was
mean, it
not
would be
made.
just taking up some words. That's all I was trying to say. I
Yes,
mean,
you
we
can.
can.
Yes, yes, you can just write like to study the attitude of teachers and parents. You can just write like that also.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Is Madhulika, if you write it this way,
Hmm?
Lohit can present his research as having two different objectives. It's just a way of marketing it, as I said the last time
Yes. Yes.
about the
Okay,
title as well. It's just when the reviewer will take a look at his research protocol, he's going to be like, okay, this research has two objectives. If he just looks,
okay.
if he reads, he will find.
Ah,
You
Yes,
get it?
as I said,
I get it.
you are just try to think like what reviewer will like to see in your research project. Means
Okay.
I would just like to suggest all of you that after writing your research protocol, uh, think that you are not a student, you are a reviewer, and what you are going
Hmm.
to look in your research protocol. This will make your research protocol more interesting and more good. I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Welcome.
Sannidhi has another question, Lohit. Go ahead, Sannidhi.
Yes.
So how do you avoid plagiarism when you're referencing a paper? So for example, I
Also, one
see
more thing, I
some,
would like to ask one thing about that.
First, I will
So,
answer the question of Saniti.
yeah.
Yes.
So for example, I see some lines from a study that like, okay, it's a similar study and I want to write the same thing. Is it okay for me to write that verbatim or should it be paraphrased or what am I supposed to
Yes, you can write the words or any sentences from the particular study because we mainly take the primary sources as research papers. But if you are writing anything from any research paper, you should give the reference. You should mention reference like in the superscript, like this is the first reference of your study. Then you should uh, after the means after full stop, you should write like a one in the superscript, and in references you should mention about them in the Banquet format. But if you are taking any sentences from anywhere, but you don't know about how what is the source of this particular sentence, so first thing you should keep in mind. Means avoid to take references from any unwanted sources or encyclopedia. But though if you are getting any references, then you can use various softwares like plagiarism checker and all. So this will definitely give you the reference of your style, your particular text. I think this is clear to you.
say? Like for example, in the thing you shared right now, the first paragraph of the introduction, is that supposed to be something original or did you just like
Yes,
maybe take it
actually,
from
this
some
is the
other?
definition of cognition, and this complete paragraph was taken from the reference. So I will share these all protocols with you, the PDF of that in your Google Classroom, so that you will get to know about everything of particular protocols.
Thing is, Sannidhi, I think what you're asking is, when should I reference a study, and means what am I taking from the study that I need to reference, right? I mean, if I'm taking just a couple of sentences and copying it, do I have to put that as a reference, or if I'm taking data from that study, then should I put it as a reference? And the answer is, if you look at his introduction, the thing that is written, you can't exactly copy that and paste it on your paper. That would be super plagiarism, because this is an already published or already, it's already up on the internet, already in the medical literature. But in introduction and stuff, what people usually do is they look at other papers, and what they do is they change a couple of words, use the sentence, maybe change the passive voice to an active voice. You can do stuff like that that would kind of bypass that plagiarism check, because plagiarism is a bad thing. But let's say this study has found out, has concluded something, and then that's something that you want to include in your research, then you have to put it as a reference, right? For example, if this study concludes that yes, the attitude of parents towards adolescent reproductive and sexual health is lacking in India. Let's say that's the study what it concludes. And if you use that finding in your study, that's when you should cite that, okay, this is this data I'm citing from this study from Lohit Vaishnav et al, right? Yeah, so, and also if you want to exactly like copy something verbatim, then maybe put it in quotes. That's something that skips the plagiarism. Shekhar has another question. Shekhar, go
Yes,
ahead.
Shekhar.
So about this protocol, we have mentioned the objective like in 2 points. How would we comment on the aim that you were differentiating on?
I have just mentioned like so aim is your means it is the broad term. Aim is very as I have given the example. The bigger circle is your aim, and the smaller circle means what exactly you are going to do is your objectives. Means if you are yes, means if you are taking an example of effect of means mental health of effect of lockdown due to mental health on mental health of medical student, then your aim is like to know the effect to know the mental status of medical student of lockdown due to lockdown, and your objective is like to compare the health or compare or anything or confirm that finding or to compare them with the other things. Means you can just do like a mental health of normal students. Means normal finding of DASS 21 is like this and your finding is like this. So this should be your objectives. Means first thing, aim should be very much means like broad term, and objective is like what exactly you are doing in this study. Clear? Yes.
Yes. Does anybody has any more questions? Feel free to ask right now. Sahil, yes, Sahil, go ahead.
Yeah, in the last slide which we saw, the two comparisons. I don't understand. Was it a comparison between the two papers, or that how you need, or am I missing something?
So you are talking about
Uh,
Uh,
the
Your
one
last
which shows
slide.
the two papers.
this
yeah,
too.
this.
Yeah, this one.
Just
So
I was just talking about this. Both of these protocols were selected by the ICMR, and so we can use like these are the good protocols, and we can study from them. So I would just put that protocols because in one protocol we have seen that the introduction is completely 300 words, and another is introduction is like simple in 100 or 150 words. So I would just like to tell you that this is not a matter like your selection is not dependent on how much you write. The selection is dependent on the quality of your content or means what you are going to do and what is the background of your study. Because in both the studies, the introduction is written in step by step. So these things are important. I would just like to highlight that. Nothing like comparison. Both the studies were
okay,
selected by ICMR. Yes.
yeah, thank you.
Any more questions, guys? Feel free to ask your questions. Can you tell what is the implication? What implication, Yadav, Yash? Implication of what are you asking
I think
exactly?
Actually, it wasn't written in last that implication.
Yes.
The last slide, knowledge and implication, I guess.
Acha, acha, acha.
Means
Objective and
implication.
implication, yes.
Yes, implication is just like means if we know that anything is like we will just take an example of the mental health of medical students due to COVID-19 lockdown. So there is no such thing mentioned in the literature. We know about means there are very much studies mentioning about the mental health of medical students, but we do not know about the mental health of medical students due to effect of lockdown. So we are doing this study in particular thing. So we are going to generate a data regarding the mental health of medical students due to the effect of lockdown due to COVID-19. So this will add to the literature. So this thing we are going to achieve from our study, and we need to just simply mention that in your implication. So I have just put like objective and implication and that double arrow, because what we are going to achieve, this should be our objectives mainly. Means our implications will be dependent on our objectives. So that's why I have put like that.
So just to add on to what Lohit already said right now, what happens is when you set out to do a research, right? You want to achieve something. Okay, it is that question which is going on in your mind which you want an answer for, but that answer should have some purpose also, right? It's not that we just go out and about and say that why are chips fried in oil and not in water, right? That does not give us any final data which will be useful for us, which is why you need to figure out how it will either affect society or a certain sect of people or anything. So if you're taking out a study, when you're writing the implication, normally how ICMR views it is that they like studies which can have some general effect on the population and can help either the rural population or can help people to become more urbanized. But when it comes to healthcare, again, it becomes a bit difficult because there is that complete dichotomy which is there. So what you have to do is you have to ensure that there is something which there is some practical application to your study at the end of the day. Okay, it shouldn't be that it's just theory and we're going to keep it in a book and publish it in a paper. That's it. There should be something which either could be learned or something which can then be further on studied. So through your research results, sometimes like parallel studies can also be taken up. Okay, now you've learned that okay, now chips can be fried in water. Then there are different types of water, the specific gravity of water. So then you can do a study on that, right? Again, this was just a joke to kind of lighten the mood up. But this is what how you write your implications, saying that my study is going to help either with the prognosis of the disease or it's going to help patients in palliative care or anything. But you need to make it a bit easier in that way. I hope this was I hope that answered your question, Yash.
And that's the reason why he mentioned this arrow between them, and that's why he connected those two, because those two are connected. You derive the implications from the objectives of your study, but the objectives don't tell the reviewer why this study is important for medical literature. The reviewer would not take a look at the objectives and be like, he wouldn't be able to derive that from the objectives only. That's what your job is.
And that's why
And in other words, like when you're doing your literature review, so if you identify some gaps in those knowledge, like if you've done a study and you see that there are some gaps in the subject which is being talked about, so you you write your hypothesis in that way, and then your implications become those only. So basically, you're connecting what has already been done and what are the gaps in those knowledge, and you're covering those gaps. Those are the implications of your study. Basically, you're contributing to the literature which is already present.
yes.
Any more questions? Or shall we carry on? I think Lohit, you can go on.
So yes.
Rahul, I think there's a question on the YouTube live chat. Lohit, if you'd like to take a look at that.
Could someone read it out to me, please?
Yeah, sure. So Saptarshi Roy says, if we use a readily available case study, do we need to take permission from the author?
I think we can just cite their study. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Lohit, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yes. Means if you are taking anything from a study already has been published, then we can take any references from their study. But for this, we need to mention them in the references of our study. But if your particular study has been done with the pre-formed or the self-made case record form, and if you are looking for the case record form, then in that case only you need to approach that particular author and to seek the help from them that we are going to cite your study, and can you please help us with the case record form you have made, and can you please help us. So in that case you need to approach your author, that particular author, or otherwise you can use the literature mentioned in their study and you can cite them in your references. You can do like that. Yes, any more questions?
Yes, go.
One more question in the live chat. Saptarshi Roy says, please tell what is citation, why, and how to use it in a reference. Hi, Saptarshi. I think we'll answer this question in the few slides. It's part of the presentation.
Yes. Any more questions?
I think Shekhar has a question, I think.
Yeah.
I want to know, does the review thing hold as much credibility as the research report? in the literature fraternity. Whatever.
Yes.
Yes.
Means, can you please repeat your question?
I meant to say the review of a research article, does it hold that much weightage as a piece of literature in general?
This thing has been already covered in yesterday's session, but yes, Orithro can answer very much better in manner.
The thing is, okay, there's two things. One is weightage on your CV or weightage on your experience, and there's another thing which is weightage on the literature. If you're asking about if it has more weightage in literature, yes, I told you that it has the strongest evidence. If you remember the pyramid,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
told you that reviews, systematic reviews, and meta-analysis have the strongest evidence, which means if you're trying to understand something from a particular study, you're more likely to believe if it comes from a review than if it comes from a case report or just a case control study, right? But that being said, as a medical student, if you want other people to look at your CV and understand how much you've worked for research, yes, it's more likely that they would be happy with you working in a couple of research projects than reviews, because reviews are easier to do. It's for more experienced, more people with much more exposure. You're just an MBBS guy. You're not an MD or an EM. That's for those people who have understanding, who have the knowledge to judge
Hmm.
published researches already. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
All right.
And another thing is, what happens is when you take a review article, right? It is mainly to find further scope of research through that. But when you're doing your own research, you already have your set objectives which you want to achieve at that point. Okay, so you can help develop further scope, but then you're not looking at that further scope. What you're doing is you're bounding yourself with your objectives. You're binding yourself with your objectives. But then in a review article, you're saying that, okay, this person got these results. So a further avenue opens up and we can now split into that part of it. I hope that kind of answered your question.
Thank you so much.
Any more questions? Any more questions?
Lisa has a question. Do we have to add implications as a different heading?
Yes. Uh, this will be the subheading of our research protocol.
So normally implications comes right before references. So you end it with implications and then your references. Okay. So it is first aims and objectives. First is the title of the study, sorry, then introduction. After introduction, aims and objectives, then methodology. Once you're done with methodology, and methodology has multiple subheadings, okay? And Lohit has shown it here. He's explained each of them brilliantly. So do go through that. And then after which, yeah, as Lohit has mentioned it here, after you have your methodology, then you mention the implications and references. This is for protocol preparation. Okay, we're only talking about protocols here. When it comes to a report writing, after you're done with your studies, you have more subtitles such as review literature, review of literature review. You also have your results, your conclusions. Those are other titles which come over there. But implications is practically what you end with your methodology.
And one more important thing I forgot to mention, I'm really sorry for that. At the end of methodology, or you can just mention like annexures. You can add the attachments or annexures. In annexure A, you can write like the standard protocol of your consent form in vernacular also and in English also. Then you can write the case record form or standard questionnaire. So this will make your protocol very much better and impressive. So you can just add annexures like annexure A consent for annexure B is the patient information sheet, and annexure C is case record form or study question like that. I think any more questions?
No, I don't think we have any more questions. I think we can. Oh, annexes are not a compulsion, right?
Yes. So I think guys, you will be able to write your research protocol right now, and so my next colleague Bhargavi is going to present about the references and what is the difference between the different guidelines of NIH, ICMR, and WHO. So I would like to invite Bhargavi. So thank you guys for your patience listening. Thank you.
Lohit, can you stop
Yes.
sharing? Guys, see my screen?
Yes, Bhargavi.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Bhargavi. I'm the Assistant Chief of Research of MERSA. And today I will be about references and some additional information regarding your protocol preparation. So we had several questions as to why referencing is important. This was actually one of my questions too. You've been part of the webinar, the workshop so far. Why do you think that referencing might be important? Just a few, like in the ballpark.
When you quote someone, when you're quoting someone else's work, you have to give credit. So that's why.
Yeah. Perfect. So you need to give credit. You need to acknowledge the work that they've done for the scientific community. Also, can you guys hear me properly?
Yes.
I'm not getting yeah,
Yes.
I'm getting a static here. Okay. So why is referencing important? Just to give credit and to avoid plagiarism. As there was a question earlier as to how much plagiarism can be accepted. So as a general rule, about 10% of plagiarism is accepted, or even if you want to directly quote lines from a research paper, the implications of a research paper into your into your introduction, then you can either reference it with a superscript, the number, or else you can use double quotes. Okay, you can just use the quotes, double quotes, so it makes sense that it's not stealing or use of intellectual property. Great. So there are many styles of referencing. Some of the styles of referencing, they are very quite popular. The Harvard style, the Vancouver style, the APA style, and again, APA stands for American Psychological Association, and the MLA style also. The most important referencing style for us right now, as students, as undergraduates, is the style, because ICM, whatever projects that we might do at the ICMR short-term studentship, that one only references in only the Vancouver style. So we'll be elaborating more on the Vancouver style. Again, it is a numeral. You have to number all your references from 1 to how many ever, and then all of them have to be listed, not alphabetically, but in ascending order. Yeah. And then the reference list is a numbered list, and there should be a single space with a one-line space between each. Great. So some of the few examples of how to reference from different sources. So you're not just going to take your sources to be just research papers or like a website. There are several resources for your information. So you can use a journal, you can use books, brochures, or websites, theses. So this is how you reference from a journal. You have to, in case there are multiple authors, you need to mention the names of the authors. First the last name, and the first name or the middle name should be abbreviated, and then you mention the article title, and then the journal or the periodical abbreviation. Here journal name, or if you can, write the name, or else use an abbreviation or an acronym. Like for example, the American Cancer Association has a journal, that is ACA journal, so you can just use ACA, something like that. And then you have to mention the year, date, the day and everything, volume or the issue. So in case that journal is a monthly journal or a quarterly or something like that, then you need to know which volume. Again, that will make sense when you already have mentioned the date, the year, month, and day. And you'll also have to mention the issue and from which page numbers to which page numbers you're taking it. And in case you're citing, you're using the same journal for multiple references, but not, for example, here 73 to 90, but you're also citing from, let's say, page 120. So you can just give which and all pages that you use separated by a semicolon. Here they've used all of these pages. So not all of these pages, but the page range they've given. In case there is a page outside of this range, they use a semicolon and also give that page. Yeah. And then brochures, again, the author's name or the editor's name. In case that is an abridged or an unabridged, you need to again abbreviate the first and the middle names, the book title, the subtitle, the edition, the place of publication. So for example, okay, how many of you were in ICSE? In ICSE, we had for English literature, we had The Merchant of Venice as our drama. And there we need to we had to mention the place, that book had the place of publication, whether it was published in India, or if it was Forget ICSE. Even your normal textbook, even Robbins has an edition, right? Robbins has the Asian edition. It also has the international edition. So you need to mention if it's from which it's taken. Although the information is like practically same, you just have to mention which exact source that it did from. Again, in case it's an author, the author's name. In case it's an editor, the editor's name. And don't forget in the year. Next is a thesis. So thesis and web page here, very important. That important because we don't, as medical students, we don't consult thesis any doctoral, postdoctoral or doctoral students. Why? It's because these are huge sources of information, and the times that we do, we need to give citations like this. Again, the name, the name of the author, and the name of the article, or the name of the thesis here. And then we need to provide the source, like where did we get the thesis from? Did we have like a soft copy? Did we get it from the internet? Did we find it in a collection of theses from this particular university? So you need to know from where you got it also. And then if you have got it from the internet, provide a hyperlink to the web page or the website that you got it from. Again, web page here different from thesis because let's say you're reading this from okay, let's say you're doing a research study and then you're using some information from Medscape, osmosis or something, Medscape. Okay, so you need to, that is a web page. So you need to again give a link of Medscape, but this is different from a thesis because Medscape itself has information of its own. It's not, it is derived from other sources, and that's how they put all the information into their web page. But still, you need to just give the hyperlink of the web page. And then after you're done the referencing and citing and quotations, the numbering, everything, you need to check all of this. First, cite the literature thoroughly, but not excessively. So what I mean by excessively, Arithro already mentioned, sorry, Arithro for the pronunciation. He also mentioned when and where to state the citations, right? There was a question and he answered that. Again, I am going to reiterate when and where, as to you don't have to excessively cite your reference. What I mean to say by excessively is, let's say you have the source of information from one paper. So you used lots of information from that paper. Wherever you used it, you can quote it. But then if you use multiple papers of the same author, there's no need to quote again and again. Just quote it once. In one place where you said, okay, so this is the most amount of information that I've used from a paper like used it in the introduction. Just cite that paper into the introduction. Let's say you use the information from the same paper later on, quote it again. But if it's from the same author again and again, you just have to quote it a few times, not overdoing it. Although it doesn't really matter if you reviewers are going to get irritated if you overdo it. But other than that, it's fine. You can overdo it if you want to. You're going to get irritated, yeah, with excessive citations. And then you added citations for all references, and also that you cited all papers important to your field, including those from potential reviewers. So one thing on the good books of reviewers is, okay, let's say that you know who the reviewer is. You know an editorial board of people such and such, and they're part of this community. You take papers from their community, you quote them. That is how you get it in, like they'll get that you know the information about these committees, about these reviewers, so that your paper is again legit. Let's say you don't know what the reviewers are. If it's a double-blinded review like that, you don't know who the reviewer doesn't know you, for example ICMR, then it doesn't make sense to just the papers from the reviewers, because you of course don't know who the reviewer is. And the next, bibliography and references cited from list of references. They form the list of references. Now, what is the difference between bibliography and citations is, bibliography is all sources that you used in making your paper. Each and every resource that you used in making your paper, right? It can be your Wikipedia page also, which again will have bibliography of its own. And in the bibliography, you have to include the hyperlink of the Wikipedia. If it's a reference list, then you don't have to include the Wikipedia, okay? Because like if you exact words from the Wikipedia, then you have to include in the citations. If you just paraphrase it and write it on your own, you don't have to cite it. You can just include it in your bibliography. Again, numbered. Again, it should be, and you can differentiate both ways. Next, you're done with the protocol to now. You're done with the citations. You're done with everything. This is your final checkpoint before giving it your or putting it out there for reviewing. Sorry. Yeah, the title specific and informative. Yes, as previously mentioned, the title should be precise. It should be informative. It should be accessible to a broader audience. Here again, objectives and implications. So what we mean to say accessible to a broad audience is the sample. If the sample size is small, then again it's a broad audience. Or else if you are submitting it to multiple reviewers, again it is a broader audience. And describe the significance of the research to field and state the aims and innovation potential of research. Again, aims and objectives pretty clear. Then don't include any confidential information. Again, so there is some in ethics, according to ICMR guidelines, you're not supposed to mention your name or which institution you are from, or your name, or any information as to how they can identify that they can trace back the protocol to you. You just give the reference number. So you're not allowed at all to include any of the confidential information, because if you do, it will be disqualified immediately. Like immediately, they're not even going to read further. If they get to know your name or something, done. But if you use a study geography, like in study geography, if we say western part of Maharashtra, like the Vidarbha region of Maharashtra, there are many colleges in that region. So they won't get to know which college or which person you are. So if it's like a vague way of mentioning area you're from, that's fine. But they just shouldn't trace it back to you. And according to ICMR, in the abstract, you can't use any images or graphs. This is very clear. The guidelines does not allow any other media except text and keywords. So why is keywords important? You can unmute themselves and tell me why keywords is important, or type it in the chat box.
Afzal
must have heard what keyword has. Sorry?
Afzal has a question. Afzal.
Yeah, go on, Afzal.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, Afzal.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like as the previous speaker mentioned, that if I conduct a study of I am rehearing my voice. Let me just fix it.
I think it's mute for a second, and then yeah, go ahead now, Afzal. I think it's a problem with the mic.
Yeah. Yes. Now it's okay. So if I conduct a study like the previous speaker mentioned, the prevalence of anemia, and I mentioned that it is a study conducted in the East Delhi region. So in the East Delhi, there is only one college. So will there be a termination of my research protocol or not? No. I think you are muted.
Sorry. So no, it won't be terminated because they won't know it's you, right? They might know the college, but they won't know it's you. Again, if you mention the geographical area, you can only choose the geographical area. Your department of PSM is like allowed to go. If you want to go outside, then you need special permissions from the state government or the local police station. Everything you need permissions for that. Or else, if you do it from your how much of an area is allotted to your PSM department, it won't be a problem. Again, they can't trace it back to you like specifically, right? If they can just trace it back to the college.
Just adding on to that, sorry, Bhargavi. So what happens is now if you small. Bhargavi, could you mute yourself? Sorry. Thank you. So if you're taking a very small population, right, like East Delhi anemia, okay? Now let me just tell you that itself as a research, right? When you're researching about a particular disease in a particular area, either it has to be because the incidence or the prevalence is more over there, which is why you're considering it as that small area. Otherwise, it's pointless to just say that, okay, I'm going to conduct anemia in East Delhi or something. So even if it's one college over there, Okay, but as long as the study is important, ICMR will consider it. Okay, because it's more about the study should be important. It's not about that, oh, there's one college. ICMR, I will also tell you that they don't also have enough time to go through, oh, okay, you mentioned East Delhi. I will go through the college. I will find each applicant name and everything. They don't do that because anyways, when you're filling out the form, the first page has your college and your name. It's just that it doesn't go to the peer review, right? So it's all about incidence and prevalence of a particular disease in a particular area. So as long as it is important, then make it as small an area as it is, like with Vidarbha or something. When cognitive impairment is there in pregnancy in that area, it should be studied because we need to know, is it a problem because of hypertension over there, is it a problem with the water over there, or what. So then again, I told you, further avenues. Bhargavi, you can continue.
Yeah, sure. So we're done with the checkpoint, and then now we're just going to see from the reviewer's perspective. So this is what your reviewers are looking for when they see your application. That they will be like, okay, so they have done this. Is there any scope of this research further? If you're done with, when you give the protocol, you have to give your implication. So your implication might be something that might be the expectation of your result. Okay, they will think, how can this research be utilized for the research in a similar or like a subject or a topic. So they're going to think, if this has any significance in the scientific community. Yes, checkpoint. And then if it is going to make any change in the locality, like if you chose the Vidarbha region, is there to be any change in the health communication in the Vidarbha region, for example, the anemia that's you can, and can you and your team carry out the work? Since we're all students, we have commitments, and research is not always our number one priority. So they will make sure that the research is feasible. As in, you can't say that I will do some okay. For example, my topic was establishing a relationship, if there is a relationship between HbA1c and C-peptide levels in type 2 diabetes mellitus patients. So mine is feasible. I'll tell you why it's feasible. Because we have given the time of 2 months, but we were given the time of 2 months where we did all the but we are given the time of 2 months to do the research, but we're given a whole time period of 6 months between the selection of the protocol to the results, where you can conduct in any 2 months. So it doesn't really matter if it's like done in 2 weeks within those 2 months. It should just be done. But if you want to do something like a retrospective study or a prospective study, then you have to just follow them up for years. You can't do that as part of an ICMR project, because it's the duration of the project itself is 2, so you can't do that. But if you want to review all the data that has been given in 10 years and publish it as an ICMR article, then you can do the review and also give that. So this is what the reviewers will check for in your protocol. Some of the additional content, again, not ICMR related, but if you are in for WHO and NIH, then yeah. So these three have already very much explained in detail by Lohit, adding headers, bolding, using formatting tools again, outlining numbering systems, and organizing all the research paper into various categories so that it's easier for the reviewer, and it's also easy. Like when you see a paper that good, you can't just reject it. Then in ICMR, as I mentioned before, graphics and video not allowed, but in WHO and NIH, they do allow graphics and videos. They allow illustrations, graphs, and such. Like for example, if you want a prevalence study or an incident study, you can do a pie chart, you can do a histogram, you can do any statistical graphic to show that okay, between this month this is the incidence, or else in this gender this is the incidence. So that will be more interactive for the reader. ICMR allow this, but if you're trying for other things, definitely. Okay, Yash has a question.
Yeah, Yash has a question, Bhargavi.
Actually, I want to know, like for ICMR, what we have to do, we have to first submit an abstract, and then if it is selected, we have to carry forward with the research. correct?
Bhargav, you can
Yeah.
unmute.
So, ICMR timeline, I'll just briefly mention it. First, you will apply, and then you have to give all your personal details, all that thing, and give your protocol. After the call has been, they're going to review your protocol, and they're going to give you the results in a couple of months. But this year, made by, let's say, like 7 months. This year, we gave the protocol in Jan, but we got it in July. June, yeah. So they're going to review it within 2 months and then let results if you've been selected for further research. If you've been selected, then you can go ahead with your research in a period of 6 months, any 2 months in that 6 months, and then finish your research, you have to write the report with all the results, and you have to elaborate on the statistical tools, control, all of these variables that you see in the ICMR, the skeleton of the ICMR protocol. So you have to elaborate on all of this, and then give them the report. After the report submission, they're again going to review it, and within a couple of months, they're going to give the results also, if you get the stipend or not. If the research is given and it is got a good outcome, then they will give you the stipend of 20,000, which explain in some time. Yeah.
Is the same for the like PubMed or all? They also follow the same criteria.
Sorry,
like if you are planning to publish your research in some foreign journal or something, they also follow the same criteria. They also will first accept your protocol and will see it.
No. Go ahead, Bhargav.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just the ICMR timeline to help the student. If you are a researcher, then you don't have to actually give the update for 6 months and then do your research. You could have already completed your research and then given it for publishing. And if you're applying for grants and everything, you should have definitely applied before the research takes place. The research is done, you can't say, oh, I've done this research, I spent this much money from my pocket, give me money. You can't. So if you're applying for grants or stipends or anything like that, scholarships, then please do it before the research is being conducted. And if you're looking for publications, it doesn't matter if you've completed or not. I mean, it's helpful if you have completed, because you can give them the abstract, they'll review, and then if they think that it is good enough, you can give them the whole paper. Again, as explained yesterday, we need to be validatory journals. So just make sure you're giving it in
to that, Bhargavi. I'll just add a little bit. If in case you guys have any doubts or any confusions about the difference between ICMR and publishing in a journal, ICMR is not a journal. ICMR is an institution that provides you grant, that provides you some money and some resources to publish, to complete your research. A journal does not give you money. A journal only publishes your work. You need to apply for the proposal to somebody who you think would give you financial support for your research. For example, when you're publishing your research to any journal, they would ask you for any kind of financial support organizations, like where have you received your financial support from. In that case, you have to give them the link or maybe the financial grant IDs and stuff, that this is where I've received my funding from. That's when you have to give them with their proposal, the person who will be granting you the funding. For journals, they don't give you funding, they only publish your research. So for them, you have to complete the entire research. It doesn't even have to be for 2 months. You could have done the research for last 10 years or something, or maybe even in 2 weeks. It just has to be good. They just have to like it and they just have to accept it. That's it. So proposal is for grants, it's for money, financial support. I hope that clears up a little bit.
Okay. So this is again tracking your budget or financial aid. Already discussed. We already discussed this part. But do make sure that we're all students and we're all mostly applying for the ICMR STS program. So that gives a stipend of 20,000, 10,000 per month. So and this is all after the research has been completed. Okay, this is all after the research has been completed. So whatever if you require like a specific step that you need to use. For example, in mine, I had to use the SPSS software, which we had to buy, and all of this again goes from the budget of the college, the university that you're part of. So you need to have a good rapport with that. Yeah, you're willing to spend money on me because I have a research project that is recognized, recognized by ICMR for further research. So just make sure that you have a good rapport with your university. Also make sure how much money you're spending on it. Some of the universities, like for example mine, asked me for to give back the money. They're spending this much money on the software and on the tools. They said, if your research accepted, give back the 20,000 to us, because anyway we spent it. That's what they wanted. So make sure you're clear with everything before you start. Then the APL referencing. APA stands for American Psychological Association. Again, this is another way of referencing, very important for ICMR. But if you're looking for NIH and WHO, very important. You can also try the MIS or the Harvard style, but this is again one of the popular ones. The reference is given in such a way that there is an author date. It is an author date style of referencing, where it consists the name of the author, the title, and then the source. And then if it is an internet source, or if it's available in a soft copy online, then you can give the link also. And then the year of publication. As usual, you have to mention the year of publication, the issue in all of your references. Then, okay, so in various study designs, we saw, like if it is a cross-sectional study, or let's take an example it already said before, the effect of lockdown. For this, we used a Lygard scale. In this, we used a questionnaire, which is a Google form based questionnaire. So you need to mention what kind of tools, the method you used. So the various things that you can use is a case record, a questionnaire, like patient info. All of this will be further elaborated in day 3 tomorrow. But as an introduction, record is a document that contains all the information that is required for the protocol. Okay, and this is usually used in trials, not the basic science, but the second type of trials that Arithro mentioned yesterday. And a questionnaire is again it's a document here, because it's a Google form for this example. It consists of all the questions for that we need to be answered purpose of gathering information. And next is the difference between the ICMR and NIH guidelines. Most important, ICMR. These are like kind of okay for us. Okay. So there's something very important called as publication policy. In WHO and ICMR is not very specific with this, because it doesn't have a journal. And publication policy here is they can either choose to make it open access, that is free of cost, open for all students or everyone around the world, or they can keep a fee. There are many ways that keep a fee. They'll just give the abstract, and if you need the full paper, you need to pay and you need to see the full paper. So some of them have open access, or some of them have paid on-demand publication policy. Or else, for example, in NIH, the publication policy is quite different. Little. So what happens in NIH, the National Institute of Health, for their publication policy? If you do a research taking NIH's grant or money, if it's been funded by NIH, then it needs to be published in PubMed Central within 12 months of the research completion. It should be published in PubMed, and it should be free of cost. The whole paper free of cost within 12 months of research. This has to go. It's like an agreement, because they're giving you this grant. This should be published free of cost in PubMed. Again, PubMed is also maintained by NIH, so it's a gain for them. And again, graphics and video included in NIH and WHO protocols, not in ICMR. And budgets. Stipend is given by ICMR, 20,000 for students. There are other ICMR projects, also. So not for us, for undergraduates, but further on for residents, for people who are doing their super specialty. There is a junior research program and all of this. So you can apply for that. It does not necessarily have to be medical students also. They don't necessarily have to be medical students. If it's any health or medical electronics related type of research also, they can apply for that. So STS is the scope of STS is only for undergraduate students. Any question about the differences or anything so far?
Anybody has any questions? Just mention.
Anybody has any questions? In the chat.
In
Okay,
WHO,
so wait, I think we missed out one.
Oh, we have a question.
Just one.
Yeah. May I ask?
Yes.
Yeah. So in WHO, there's written something like CV and current research studies. What is it?
Okay, so the and research studies of the investigators. Let's say you're the primary investigator of the clinical trial. They are going to get all the papers that you have, all the research that you have been part of as an investigator or just a like a contributor. Like if you're a student and then your assistant professor is doing a research, let's say they're going to look at all the projects that you have done, assistant professor has also done, to make sure that you guys are credible enough to do a research that has been funded by WHO. Okay, and then that is when they're going to be like, yeah, okay, go ahead with that, funding you, we give a tick, a blue green tick for you. So that's how it is.
We have another question, Bhagavi. It's from Nivedita. She's asking, what is a keyword?
Yeah. She's asking, what is a keyword? Sorry, keyword. Yeah, that was the question. Keywords are very important when you're searching, when you're doing your literature review. All right. So let's say you were writing, I mean, of course, today you're making your research protocol. So then you're going to see research papers that have already been published or been conducted in the similar field. So what keywords helps is identification. There should be some the definition is, if the keyword is used in the abstract or anywhere in the paper, then that will be cite and cross reference in various libraries. Okay, like for example PubMed, medonline, or Cochrane library. All of this runs on keywords. There is a number of keywords also. You can just type in which specific words that you're looking for, and whatever paper most number of citations of that keyword will be given first. Like in the most will be the first. It will be in descending order, and you can see which one is the most potent source for you to cite in your paper. Are you getting what I'm saying? Or it's actually a very important part of your protocol making. Keywords is very important, especially if you want to get your research published. After your paper has been written, your report has been written, you need to state the keywords at the after the introduction or something like that. Like the free version. In the free version, you can see the abstract and the keywords, right? Have you ever seen like a research paper in the free versions? There will be a title, there will be the author and the date and everything, and there will be the abstract, and there will be keywords. So keywords and abstract and title, these are the most important, because anyone who is considering to buy your research paper for their own research or just for reading is going to see, okay, this has good amount of keywords, this has the words that I'm looking for in my paper, I'll get. So again, it's marketing.
Yeah, it's as Bhargavi said. It's also like it's a way of making your research, freely available to Thank you, Bhargavi. It's also a way of making your research freely available to other people. For example, if you're making a study on, let's say, I gave you an example last day, ankylosing spondylitis with bronchiectasis. So you could provide keywords like ankylosing spondylitis would be one keyword, bronchiectasis could be another keyword, pulmonology could be another keyword, rheumatology could be another keyword. So these are 4 keywords because those are the things that are mainly included in your study or in your research. So those are, those are the very good keywords that you should include. That would make it easier for other people to find your research, because that's how people search on PubMed. They don't type out the entire research, like what is the relationship between bronchiectasis and ankylosing spondylitis on PubMed. They would look for which other researches, which other papers published that contain the keywords, including ankylosing spondylitis and bronchiectasis, if that's what they're looking for. So that's what makes your paper more easily available, and that's what journals require. Because tell me one thing, why do journals want you to publish your papers? It's because journals want other people to read their journals. They want to publish papers that other people would like to read. And if you don't provide keywords, that means when a person is searching for that on PubMed, they wouldn't be likely to find your paper. That means a journal is spending money publishing your paper and they're gaining nothing. So they really need you to give good keywords so that people find their journal as well on PubMed when they search for it. I hope that clears it out a little bit more.
I think we have one more question.
There's another question for in the chat box. Samyak has asked a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, so Samyak has asked the question what to mention in quality assurance. So using any instruments, let's say you're doing a basic science or a biochemistry related or pathology study. So you need to mention all the instrument that you used, right? ICMR has a header for instruments. So under that, you need to list all the instruments and how it works also when it was last inspected. So in quality assurance, what you have to say is each instrument will have an percentage. Let's say that there is a test which you can do using various instruments. Choose the which has the least number of error percentage. So that is how you can maintain quality. And then you should also mention when instrument was last inspected. There are inspections done for laboratories, right? So you need to say when it's inspected, and if you can, I mean, there is no requirement to say in so much detail, but just say that it was in proper condition whenever it was last inspected and has been working fine so far. That is how you maintain quality assurance. Also, if you're using large sample sizes and it's an online study, then you also need to make sure that the responses that you got, for example, if you use a Google Forms based study, make sure that the responses that you got are from you use the responses only which is there in your selection criteria, there in your inclusion criteria. Okay, if you use anything that is outside of your inclusion criteria, then again the quality reduces. It won't even be a legit research project because if you're hodgepodging with a study sample, then it doesn't make sense. These are some of the ways that you can ensure quality. Also, if you're doing it with sorry, I'm saying also again, but it's just coming very slowly. If you're doing your research under has had many, they're not in case of ICMR, but in case of WHO, as I said before, CV and will be seen of the investigators and also the guides, right? If you're doing your research under a proclaimed research, like a dada in the research field, okay, then the again will be increased and the credibility will also increase. Sorry, is the lack of better word. Sorry.
Are we done with the presentation?
Yeah, we're done with our presentation. We're done
All
with
right.
the
All right. Yeah, we'll move on to the next speaker. Go ahead.
Okay, so I hope you all were able to understand everything that we've done till now. I know it's very heavy protocol making. Actually, the first time when I made it in second year, I think it took me easily, I think, a month. But now I make one protocol in one day, like from start to end. That's how you kind of, with practice, you get it. And referencing, I'll let you in on a small secret. For referencing, there are online Vancouver generators. Okay, just use them. Don't waste your time.
I'll put one in the chat box.
Yeah. So I normally use that for referencing because it takes a lot of time because their names are so weird and everything, which is why it is very difficult to. But other than that, can we all just like maybe shake up a bit, wake up a bit, and we'll start our next session soon. Okay, so just a 1 minute break, drink some water. Yes, there are softwares too. And the softwares are better because what happens is in softwares, what you can do is you can directly input the link. Like if I take the PubMed link directly from there, the software itself will analyze what part is the title, what part is the reference, what part is everything. So it's much more easier through that. But they're costly again. So the thing is, plagiarism checkers, even sometimes Vancouver generators, they're costly. So yeah.
So the another way is that
Yeah, Lohit, go ahead.
yes, another way for citation is that if you are looking for any link or if you are looking any paper in PubMed or Google Scholar, then you can click on the link like cite this for me or citation. So this will give you a complete citation according to the Vancouver style. You can just copy paste that also.
And to add on to that, another way is sometimes these articles, they're already in such high demand that they've been referenced by multiple other or cited by multiple other researchers. So PubMed is really smart. What they do is they have a side box written cited by. Okay, so if you see that cited by, click on that journal, then you go to their references, you go to that article's references, and then you'll get the entire thing perfectly referenced. And plus, it's been published. So,
Bye.
okay, sorry. So I think now we'll move on to the next session. I hope everyone is here with us. Please do keep your cameras on at all times. We will not be warning you again and again about the same thing. We already have our checkers who are. So moving on, now we have building basic research paper anatomy. Manna?
Yeah, I'm starting. Just a second.
Okay.
So, is it visible? Yeah. Am I audible, guys?
Yes, Mannat, everything's working perfectly. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'll be telling you how to basically write your research proposal. So once you've done your study, once you have your results and you want to publish it somewhere or you want to present it somewhere. So how do you go about writing your own research proposal? So first step in writing is you choose a topic, you form a research question, then you've done your literature review, and finally now you have to draft your manuscript. So this is what I will be talking about because other things have already been covered beautifully. Now let's look at the anatomy of a research paper first. Now these are the basic headings of what a research paper is. So you start with your introduction, what is already known. Now first look at this pyramid. Can anybody tell me why is this in this shape? Like, can anybody unmute themselves and tell me why is the pyramid in this shape? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the headings. Okay, I'll go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Probably because these are the things which are most read or first read by a reviewer, like what attracts to a paper, like the introduction and the conclusion, maybe.
But why is one thing broad? Like, why is the top broad and why is the fourth thing short?
Maybe precision.
Can I say?
Methodology is we write.
I think it's because the as we move on with the paper, the spectrum becomes more narrower, and in the starting there's an introduction that this is the nature of the problem, and our paper is focusing on this, and then as we go forward, the 5, 6, 7 these sites with the references, and that's all.
Okay, good effort. But I'll tell you what exactly is this. So when we start with the introduction and we move on towards the methodology, which is the fourth. So this is basically depicting the size of the column. So when you're writing your introduction is large. You're mentioning your background in the introduction. You're mentioning your hypothesis. But methodology is one of the shortest, sometimes the shortest part of your paper, because then again you move on to results and discussion. Discussion is again large. So this is basically telling you how you're going from a large paper and then your content gets smaller and then you're again broadening out. So starting with the introduction, what is already known, then you move on to the gaps in your knowledge. Like Lohit explained, you write your background and then you write your hypothesis, like how are you addressing those gaps. After that is the methodology. Methodology means what tools did you use, how did you perform your study, and then you write down the results. So till the methodology, you're preparing your protocol, you've already done all of this. Now after you've had your results, you've completed your study and you want to get it published somewhere or you want to present it, so you'll write down what results did you obtain. After that, you'll tell us what is the interpretation of those results. So you'll write down your discussion, And then you finally write what are the implications of your study, and this is what the basic anatomy of a research paper looks like. So this is an example of a research paper which I have taken from a journal. So look, this in pink is the title. This is written the author names and the details of the authors are mentioned. This here is the abstract. So this is the, you can relate from this entire paper what are the sizes of different columns. So see, abstract is this small 150 to 250 words paragraph, and then you write your introduction. Ideally, an introduction, like I'll tell you ahead, has 4 paragraphs, but that can vary according to which journal you're publishing in, or like where you're going with it. So this is the introduction, and then these are your results in the form of tables or in the form of figures, and then this finally this is your discussion, this in purple, and this is your conclusion, and then these are the references. So when you publish your study, this is what it would look like when it is published. Whenever you're researching anything, researching papers online or on Google, and you look for an abstract and then you open the full text, this is what a study looks like. Okay, now coming on to what order are your papers read. So most journals require papers to be written in the IMRAD format. So IMRAD means the first thing you write is your introduction, and then there's the methods and material, and then results, and then discussion and conclusion. So ideally, these are the broad classification of what most journals expect you to write. But what orders are the manuscripts framed? So can anybody tell me, like after you've had your methods, after you've performed your study and you have your results, is it easy to write directly start writing the introduction first, or is it easier to first write what you did and what results did you obtain? So I want somebody to tell me what would be easier for you, to write this directly start writing the introduction and the title, or to first write what did you do and what results did you obtain?
Writing the result will. Yeah, go on, please.
Okay.
I think
So
writing the introduction will be more, will be a good read, because in introduction it's basically we are addressing the problem, and somehow we are seeing to it that how it is affecting our day-to-day life. So so to build a keen observership in the reader, it's important that we should have the introduction at first.
May I answer?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think that writing the result will attract more people because they will know that they got this result, and if they are interested, they will be keen to know how we got this result,
No.
and
Okay.
then they will.
Sorry to interrupt. Like this is not I'm talking about how you publish your results. This is I'm telling you about when you start writing your manuscript, when you're drafting it at home and you start writing your report. You've done your study and you start writing your report. In what order do you start writing it? Just so that it is easier. This is no rule. This is not a rule. This is just something to make it easier.
I would like to write the result first also, because then also, it attracts more attention.
Yeah. So basically, when you have your results, when you have your methods, you write them first, and then you know that you've written something on your paper. You got the results and you wrote them down. After that, you start analyzing what the results are telling you. So basically, your discussion is your interpretation of those results. You have like you've written that 50% of your population was females, 50% was male, and then you found out that 40% prefer one thing and 50% of 60% prefer another thing. What are you concluding out of it? If you've written down your results, then only you will be able to interpret those and see what are they telling you. After you write your discussion, then you move on to the introduction. You've done your literature review, and then you'll see that what gaps were there in the knowledge and what gaps have your study covered. So according to me, if you're framing your manuscript, the best order is to first jot down your method and your results, and then you write down what is the interpretation, you write down the discussion, and then you move on to the introduction. And finally, when you have the entire paper written, you write the abstract, because abstract is basically just a summary of what your entire paper is. Okay, so moving on. first you do the research question. Before you starting your paper, you need to come up with a research question or hypothesis and decide which audience and journal you intend to target. And this has already been covered amazingly on the first day. So I'll just move on. Second thing, I'll be talking about abstract and introduction. So when you're drafting your abstract, so be it an abstract for presenting to a conference or be it an abstract for giving to a journal, for submitting to a journal so that they decide whether they want to accept your paper or not. First thing it has to be very concise. So ideally just stick to about 150 to 250 words because it is just a short summary which will describe your study along with the results without the reader having to read the entire paper. So basically, there are some journals which are not open access. And when you're researching those journals, you'll only find an abstract. You won't find the entire paper. And if somebody has to decide whether they want to read the entire paper, they'll first look at the abstract and then they'll decide if they want to read the rest of the paper. So your abstract has to be very concise. Now, there are two kinds of abstract. One is the structured abstract. Structured abstract is the one which will have all the headings which your paper is having. So the structured abstract has the introduction, it has the aims and objectives, it has the results and the discussion, but everything has been written very conclusively and in very short to the point. But there are unstructured abstracts also. So unstructured abstracts is basically just one full paragraph, and mostly sociology papers and papers in psyche, they have unstructured abstracts where there's just one single paragraph. After that, like Bhargavi mentioned, keywords. Make sure to use keywords in sentences repeatedly to make it easy to search. So when somebody is looking for your paper on PubMed, they won't write your name. They would look at what keywords are they looking for. So like suppose if you're writing a paper on communication in the pandemic and you want to do a literature review of that. So you type communication and your pandemic. And if your abstract has those keywords at the end, if your abstract has words like communication, pandemic, and teachers of whatever population you're doing the study on, then it will be easier for somebody to search it up and read it. And it will, something which is called search engine optimization. And this is one of the techniques which is used in that also when people write their keywords so that their paper comes above in the search results. After that, another important thing is to what tense are you writing it in? Can somebody tell me what is the difference between active and passive voice? I think we all done that in our junior classes. Is there somebody who can unmute themselves and tell me what is the difference between active voice or passive voice?
I think something like this was done by her and she did this types.
Yeah, so basically the entire paper which you're writing, it has to be easy for the reader to read. So you write it in active voice. All the things that you're writing it in active voice. So I'll just give an example. Rahul, can you send out the poll question I sent you?
Just adding it, 1 second.
Yeah.
Is it visible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just have to tell me which one is a better sentence to be used. Like if you're writing your aims and objectives, out of these two, which is a better? One is active voice, one is passive voice.
Second one.
What is second one, Sahil? Is it active or is it passive?
I think it's passive.
Yeah.
First one.
Yeah,
First one
first
is easier to read.
Yeah, so 64% of you agree that first one is the correct one and 36% are from the second one. So you're all right. First one is the better option because see, it says this study develops an effective methodology to find the prevalence of stroke in the northeastern population. Now this is easier to understand rather than you write an effective methodology to find the prevalence of stroke in northeastern population is developed, because first one is active voice, you're actively telling them that this is done, and second is passive voice. The only the only section where you use the passive voice is the methodology section, because you've already conducted the study, and that is also the only section where you can use the past tense. Otherwise, in the entire paper, you would prefer the third person present tense, and also use active rather than passive voice. Avoid using I many times in the paper, like I did this or I did that. Try to use the third person, try to use present tense, and use active voice rather than using passive voice. This is a very common mistake people do, and sometimes journals are very particular about this. Second, another thing is always proofread your abstract. Once you've written it, make sure that your abstract is following the journal guidelines. Whichever journal you've selected, whichever competition you are sending your abstract to, if you're writing a report after you've done a protocol, and after your study has been accepted, everything you're doing, make sure you're following the journal guidelines. After that is consistency. Make sure no new information is present in the abstract. This is also very important. If you're writing an abstract and it has something other than what was present in your paper, then it wouldn't leave a very good impression, and it is not allowed. Your abstract should have the same exact thing in a summarized way which were present in your paper. Tips for writing the introduction and what questions should be asked at the end after you've written your introduction section. So keep it brief. This is the introduction to your paper, and ideally, as a rule, it should be just 10% of the entire paper. Make it specific and avoid going into too many details, because you're actually doing a review of the topic you've selected, and you're not broadly telling us or giving a lecture about the entire topic. And be organized. So like Lohit mentioned, ideally arrange it into 4 paragraphs. So what is the first paragraph? Like first paragraph is the introduction, like what your topic is about. And then second paragraph, you move on to the literature review about your topic. Okay, and then in the literature review, you tell us that what is the specifics of the topic. Like in Lohit's study, there was assessment of cognition during pregnancy. So once you've written the introduction, what is already known about the subject, and then second paragraph, you've written what are the gaps in the knowledge, and what are the gaps you want to acknowledge. And then third paragraph, you mention the research targets. Which population are you targeting? What do you exactly want to do? And finally, in the fourth paragraph, you will conclude with the objectives and the aims, like the expectations from your study. So this is how you organize your introduction. This makes it easier to organize the introduction into 4 paragraphs. You start with the introduction, you move on to literature review, then you do the research targets, and then you write the objectives and expectations. Finally, reference everything. So like Bhargavi mentioned, avoid putting over citations in a single line. But if you're taking something like, suppose you're doing, like I did a study on sustainability of telemedicine. So if I'm doing a study and I want to give a definition of sustainability, and I pick it up from another paper, I'm picking it up line by line from the same paper, then you have to reference it. Otherwise, it will be plagiarized. After you've written your introduction, it is very important to check if your introduction is answering these 3 questions. So firstly, what does the study do and what is the topic? Is your introduction, what you've written, is it answering this question? So you're starting by discussing the current situation, and then you're highlighting the importance of the issue, and then you're providing a background of the issue. So your study should be answering what your study is doing and what is the topic of your study. Why is it important? Why is it important is similar to what are the implications of your study, or have you addressed the gaps in the current situation which are there. And you have to explain how is your study relevant to the literature which is already present, and what do you intend to do with it. And thirdly, what are your expectations from the study? Again, you have to mention your objectives and the results you hope to find. Even before you've had your results and you've had your discussion or conclusion, you need to write what are you expecting out of the study. And then after you've obtained your results, then you can mention that were you able to find those results, or were you able to conclude what you wanted to conclude. So make sure these 3 questions are being answered when you're writing the introduction section. Moving on, this is a difference between abstract and introduction. So abstract, if it is a structured abstract, it is divided into sections, whereas introduction is in itself is a separate section, which is the first section of the paper. Abstract can stand alone as a separate entity when if you're looking for some papers which don't have full access, then you'll only have their abstracts. You won't find the introduction, because introduction is a part of the entire paper, and introduction would not make sense without the rest of the paper. So because abstract is basically just a concise summary of your entire paper. And another thing is avoid any kind of abbreviations or difficult acronyms. So like Sahil, you said earlier today that if there's a difficult terminology, then it makes hard for readers to understand. So similarly, if somebody is searching for your abstract on the internet and they find something, some technical abbreviations which are not understandable by the layman, that they wouldn't know what the study is all about. So this is very important to make sure that your abstract does not have any kind of difficult abbreviations or acronyms. But your introduction can include scientific details and abbreviations. And if you've had something that is difficult, you can then later on put it on in the appendix and you can explain it. Your introduction can have those, but your abstract can never have abbreviations or any kind of technical jargon. We're moving on to methods and methodology. This is a checklist for methods. This has been covered comprehensively by Lohit today, so I won't go into the details. But this is just a checklist. Once you've written your methods, just check that you've mentioned everything. If you have to mention the sample size or the material. So if you're working on human subjects, you have to mention demographic details. So where was your study conducted? Was it in, if you're conducting a study on just the medical students in your college, so you have to mention which prof, medical students, your demographic details of the students, whether they were first prof, second prof, which college do they belong to, which area do they belong to. And if you're taking hospital records, like if you're doing suppose a study on leprosy, or you're doing a study on TB patients, you're doing a retrospective study which already has hospital records, and you have to mention from which year to which year were your hospital records, and include the basic health stats at the start of the study. And then move to the study design. You have to mention what is the what are the tools you have covered, whether it's a cross-sectional study, whether it's a case control study. Very clearly mention what is the study design of your study. Then tell us the method of analysis. How were the results calculated? Before starting any study, after you have the results, you have to understand how you are going to analyze it. Whether you're going to use a simple software like Excel, like sometimes beginners they calculate the data manually, or they can use Excel. But like as you get more expertise, you will move on to SPSS, and then you'll move on to some Python and some very scientific like technical methods to calculate. And what tests are you using? You have to mention the tests you're using. If you have if you have a data like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grading, and if you have something where you can calculate the means or the percentages, so you have to tell us what was your method of analysis. If you use any kind of specific software, or if you use any kind of statistical test. Then write the inclusion exclusion criteria, what determinants, how were your patients eliminated, then mention the source. So this source is very controversial, because most of the journals do not require you to write the source in the methodology section. You will only write the source, and if you're using a method which is not conventional, like if you're using a method out of another study, if you're using a pre-validated questionnaire which was mentioned in another study, which was specifically designed by another study, and it is not conventional, then you will cite the source from which you have taken up that method. Otherwise, methodology section very rarely has any kind of citation. And like I said earlier, this is the only section where you're writing it in past tense, because you've already done the study. So you'll write that cross-sectional study was performed on 590 subjects from over a period of 6 days. So this you're writing it in past tense, because you want to explain what the participant characteristics were at the time of the study, because you've already performed it. So you write it in past tense. These are some of the common pitfalls to avoid in the methodology section. Don't write your method section in a random order. It should always be structured chronologically. So, okay, so Nidhi has a question. Go ahead.
You spoke about how you're supposed to write in past tense because it's already done. But when you're presenting to the ethics committee, like you're still going, you're like still not done with your project. So does that change?
Yeah, that is the difference. Like if you're writing a protocol for ICMR, then you have to do it. So there you will write. So that is what I'm saying. This is not a hard and fast rule. There you have to write that you'll do this study design, and you'll perform it on these many subjects. But if you've already written your results, and if you've already done the study, and you just want to get it published, or you want to present it to an abstract, present it to a conference, then you write the results in the past tense, because you've already done them. Otherwise, if you're writing a protocol, then obviously you have to do the results. You cannot write it in the past tense. So this is not a hard and fast rule. But when you're submitting somewhere, it is good to keep in mind the tense you're using according to the situation. Okay. So common pitfalls to avoid. First thing is, don't write your method section in a random order. It should be structured chronologically. This means that first you did what, like in the first month you did this, in the second month you did this, and this. All this I'm talking about is when you've already done the study. Okay, to make it clear, when you've already done the study and you're writing it down. So this section is about how to draft your manuscript, so how to write your own proposal. You've done the study and then you're writing it down. So you have to mention it in a chronological order. Also, don't provide irrelevant and trivial details. Like if you're using chi-square test, or if you're using some small test like Fisher exact test, or any kind of test you're using, don't go into the details or the mechanics of the test, like what kind of data is it used on. You just have to mention the test and why you are using it in one brief line. Don't go into trivial details about what the test is about. Only do that if you're using some kind of new test which would not be known to the readers, or which is very rare. So in that case you can explain, and don't explain why you chose one method over the other. So if you're giving it in percentages and means, and you're also if you're not using another method, don't go into the details of why you are using one method. Just keep it brief, and don't forget to mention any obstacles you faced in your study. If you had any kind of limitations or obstacles, you can mention it in this section. Okay, moving on to the results. So results, first thing is difference between results and discussion. Results is only you are presenting the data. What exactly have you found? This is percentage has this is percentage has this. You're not interpreting it. You won't tell us why you think that males had a larger proportion of something or females had a larger. You're only telling us what you have found. So this is just the key findings in a logical sequence using tables, figures, tests. This is just the raw data. Okay, just a second. Secondly, avoid repetition. Avoid presenting the same data in a table or figure as well as in text. So there are some journals which will reject your paper if you have written the same data. Like if you've presented some results in a table in the form of a figure, and you're also writing them down in a text, then it unnecessarily lengthens the entire section. So to keep it brief, just if you're using writing something in a table, if you've already explained the percentages in the form of a figure, in the form of a figure, in the form of a table, then don't write it in text as well. Report negative results also. So if you're expecting to find something but you didn't find it, then report that. Like if you had yes or no questions in your questionnaire and you found that 60% agreed to the problem statement, but 40% did not agree, so be sure to mention that 40% also. So mention the negative results, but be careful not to make very definitive statements. Like don't go into the details, but you have to mention the negative results also. Okay, moving on to legends. Can anybody, before I move forward, can anybody tell me what are legends? Can you unmute anyone? You see your textbooks in school, like science books and everything, and these have figures. So what are legends in those figures or tables? Okay, I'll tell you. So basically, legends are just captions. So if you see a science book, there's a large figure of even in 10th standard, there's a like botany figure, and then in the bottom it is mentioned figure 1, and then there's a description of that figure. So that description which is present in that figure, that is called a legend. So legends basically help us understand the significance of a figure or table. I'll just show you a picture and then I'll explain. So look at this table. So there's a table from one environmental earth science paper where this statement above, where it is written table 2 ecological footprint ledger of the energy sources in the Fango watershed area. So this is called a legend. This is basically a caption which is explaining your table, what you've written in the table. And there are some rules on how to write legends. So you won't believe it, my first paper was rejected because I didn't write proper legends. Basically, there are some rules to write the captions. When you're writing it on, in case of a table, you always have to place the captions above the table, aligned to the left, ideally. This can vary according to the journal you're publishing in. But ideally, when you draft a manuscript and you make a table, you always write the captions above. But if you're making a figure means you're making a pie chart, or you're making a bar graph or something like that, or you're making a line stick figure, always place the captions below the figure. So this is the standard rule. Place it above the table, but in figures, place it below the figure. Legend or caption should include information on important aspects like description. You have to tell us in the entire caption what is the type of experiment, what was the method used, what was the result obtained, p-value, what is the p-value. So if you've seen some technical books, like even in Robbins or something, whenever there's a complicated graph or something is mentioned, there's a long caption below it. So that entire caption is called the legend, and it will be very descriptive. Only by looking at the footprint or the that legend or caption, you'll get to know what the figure is talking about or what the table is talking about. So the reader doesn't have to read your entire text. Uh, uh, they can only understand it just by reading the caption of the table. Okay. So tips for reporting the data. Never use percentages for very small data. So if you have just 2 people, or if you're reporting data in just for 5 people, don't use percentages. Instead use like 1 of 2 did this, 2 of 2, like 1 out of 5 people did this. So there's something called the n value. Basically you write a percentage, and in the bracket you mention n is equals to how many people is that percentage referring to. Okay, so like if you have 10 people, and you're saying that 2 of them are females and 8 of them are males. So you can write n is equals to 2 for females and n is equals to 8 for males, instead of mentioning it in the form of percentages. So that is a better way to report your data when it is very small. Also, don't use too much text. Instead, report your data in the form of tables, bar graphs, pie charts, figures. Okay? If your data is something that can be represented in the form of all these things, then do make sure to do that instead of writing it in the form of text, because it is more visually appealing. Captions also provide more information about what the figure covers. If you're creating a graph, make sure that the axes are labeled. You have to tell us what is on the x-axis, what is on the y-axis. Now look at this, both of these. Would it be more visually appealing to you if some data is presented in the form of the table on the left, or would it be more appealing if it is present on the right? So obviously, if your data is something that could be better represented in a figure, then make sure to represent in a figure. It is very important to decide what is the method of representation for your results. Don't make an overstuffed table when the same data can better be represented in a figure. And see, again, this is a very badly done table. This is an example of a very badly done table. Again, the table caption is written below, and so much of data is overcrowded. And this NB, okay, I'll move forward. This is an example of a very well done table. So I'll tell you how. Because see, first thing, the caption has been mentioned above the table, and it is aligned to the left, and it is exactly telling us what the table is all about. So it is mentioning ecological footprint ledger of the energy resources in this watershed area before and after for green policy. Only by looking at the caption you can understand what the table is talking about. Second thing is, if you're mentioning some units in your headings, make sure to tell us at the bottom what those units are talking. What are those units? So if you're mentioning like this. Kilowatts per hour, or whichever the unit are, you have to tell us the description of those units below the table, and make sure that your table is clear and very concise, and it like this data has been presented in the form of categories, and spacing is proper and everything is proper. And you, if this table has been taken from another source, then you have to mention the source. If you're not using your own table and if you're just using a sort of a reference, then also you have to mention the source of the table. So this is an example of a well done table. Okay, moving on to the discussion section. This is basically you've written your results. You know what you have found out. Now you want to interpret the data. How would you interpret what your results are telling you about? So this is the difference between results and discussion. Results will not interpret your findings. They will only tell you the raw data which you found out. Discussion will provide the interpretations. Results include the text, figures, and tables, and discussion will never include any of these. Never include the text or any kind of figures or tables in your discussion. Discussion is only written in the form of text, where you're only explaining us what your data is talking about. In the results, avoid speculation. So like if you've written that maybe if you've written something like females have more endurance than males, like if you found out that 50% of females, 60% of females had more endurance and 40% of males had endurance, but you wouldn't tell us in the results why you think this is so. Like, what are the reasons for this? you'll only mention the speculations, any kind of relations to your study in the discussion section. Don't mention any kind of speculations in the results. Only provide the raw unedited data and explain the statistical analysis which you used. Like if your study is significant, you can use the p-value. You can mention us what was the p-value which was obtained and whether your data was significant or not. Do not tell us why your data is significant. So don't go on the why of the question. Only tell us what is happening, what are the results. Don't make any conclusive statements in your results section. Now, drafting the discussion. Firstly, criticize or justify the study's findings and suggest improvement. Whatever results you've obtained, you have to justify those results by giving us reasons. They can be either from your discussion, from what you have found in the background of your study while doing the background research, or they can be just something you find out from another paper. So one thing is, when you're writing your discussion, you can take out statements from another paper to compare your results with another study which was done in another paper. So like you can say that in XYZ paper, the results obtained were this, that males were more than females who are agreeing to a particular statement. But in your study, it is the opposite. So if you're mentioning something like that, if you're comparing your results with another previous study, you have to mention it in the references. Also discuss the impact of this research on the related research. So basically like implications, address the problem which has been stated in your introduction. Go back to your introduction, whatever aims and objectives you wanted to attain in this study. Have you attained those? How are the results relevant to those factors? You have to tell us while drafting the discussion, and also mention the limitations of your study. So if your sample size is small, it would be very nice. I think people appreciate it if you mention the limitations in your study before they even ask that question. So it would be helpful if you mention what are that your limitations were, like if it was a small sample size, or you were just focused on rural population, or you did not have the proper time frame, or you want to expand the research. So any kind of limitations that are there, you have to mention in the discussion section. You can even make a separate header for that. Finally, conclusion. When you're writing the conclusion, firstly restate what your hypothesis was. So basically, if you have suppose you have three aims of your study, and when you're concluding it, you should be concluding it in relevance to the aims. So restate your hypothesis, restate the most important findings which you had from your discussion section, and highlight the significance of those findings. State the future direction. So this is basically a checklist that whenever you are writing down the conclusion, this is one of the shortest sections. Whenever you're writing down the conclusion, make sure you have restated all of these. Your conclusion should mention all these points. Okay, moving on to proofreading tips. You've drafted your manuscript. I think one tip I would give is draft your entire manuscript one day and then just leave it for 2 to 3 days and come back to it after 3 days. So once you read it again, you'll find many errors. Okay, after you've written your manuscript once, you have to reject it on your own. So what are some proofreading tips? So make sure that there are effective transitions between paragraphs. So when you're reading it, your papers, even to a layman who doesn't know how you did your study or how you did your results, just by reading your manuscript, he should know what your study is telling him about. So there should be effective transitions between each paragraph in your study. Then look for the first lines of each paragraph. So whenever you write one paragraph, this is a general rule for writing any kind of study. Even if you're writing an essay, or if you're writing a manuscript, or if you're publishing a report, anything you're doing, look at the first lines of each paragraph. They should be an introduction to the entire paragraph in the way that they should provide a central idea for the rest of the paragraph. So someone who is just skimming through your paper and he doesn't want to read the entire paper, he'll look at the first lines of each paragraph, and just by looking at the first lines, he'll get an idea of what the paper is talking about. After that, read the journal guidelines carefully. Again, read the journal guidelines. Like it has been mentioned, what is the font size? Have you adhered to the guidelines? Is your word limit within the guidelines? Every journal you're looking at when you're deciding where to publish your paper, you'll find a column which has the author guidelines. So looking at the author guidelines, there'll be things like include a cover page and include your text should be in 12 size, or your font style should be this, and there should be adequate spacing between your fonts, and these should be the sections. So make sure keep a checklist and make sure you followed each of them, and then finally check for grammatical errors. So there are some softwares where you can check for grammatical errors, like this Grammarly, But if you're using Grammarly, always use a premium subscription, because if you're using the free one, that is not very effective. Okay, check for grammatical errors, because it is a very big put off. If your paper has grammatical errors, avoid using I too often. Just check how many times you've used I. Don't use I too often, and use active voice, like I said earlier, except in the results section or the methodology section. You can use I, but there also avoid. And even in the results section, you can use that I obtained this, but generally avoid using it. Okay. Any questions?
I want to ask one.
Yeah, sure.
I read some research papers. In those research papers, the writer has written, "We obtained this data." So is it correct?
Yeah, but we obtained is like, which section had they written it in? Result section,
No,
right?
not specifically the result section, but I read about it like they said "we." They use the term "we," so that's what I was focusing on.
Yeah, that is why I'm saying don't use it too often. Like, it is not a hard and fast rule. These are not rules which are mentioned by the in author guidelines or in journals. These are just steps to make your paper more presentable. And if you are targeting a very high impact factor journal, like there are some journals like predatory journals, like Ritro mentioned, and some other journals which will just accept your paper however it is. Even if it is a very bad paper which you've written it in one day, they'll just accept it because they just want to put stuff into their journal. But if you want to get it published in a quality journal which has a high impact factor, then there are some things which you can do to improve the quality of that paper. So this is not a hard and fast rule that you cannot use we or you cannot use I, but generally try to write it in the third person. Don't use I too often. Even when you're reading the paper, you'll get to know if you're using it, if you're repeatedly saying that we did this and we did that. So that way, not a rule.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay.
Does anybody have any more questions? This is the time.
Yeah, because you have to write your protocol and you have to write any kind of tips you
Although
want
Madhuri
to ask.
explained it right after.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit, but
So just one thing. I think with this we come at least to the end of how to make a protocol, and I think we could stop the YouTube live now. So all the people who have joined us on YouTube, thank you so much for joining, and we hope you could learn something out of this. And we will continue with the remaining about prepping your own